Namaste, aloha. My name is Janapati Das, and we are going to continue with our Krishna book reading. Thank you for joining in again, and thank you. Let me offer my respects to all of you. Thanks for following along and listening to some Krishna Katha. Right now, we're going to engage in the prime benediction for humanity at large, the hearing and chanting of Krishna's most holy names, which is like the cooling moon for our suffering humanity, the hearing and chanting of Krishna's name. So feel free to join in. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we have been in the Krishna book story where we go back a little bit. We remember that Narada Muni, the transcendental spaceman who travels through this three worlds, the spiritual world, upper planetary, the spiritual world, and then the three material levels of the world, the heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and then the hellish planets. But he travels with his Veena and he chants Krishna's names, and he goes to be of assistance serving Krishna, always spreading or setting situations so that the lost and fallen souls of the material world come back to Krishna. He's on that mission to bring all the living souls back to Krishna. And so in this case, he actually expedited the Krishna's pastime. So, well, he actually didn't expedite it, but he just, was doing that because Krishna's plans already were set in motion to basically let King Kamsa, the evil king of the uncle of Krishna and Balaram, and the brother-in-law to Vasudeva and the brother to Devaki, but he was very demonic, right? And we've seen in the story where he basically is deputing all these demons to kill Krishna and cause so much trouble. So he actually deputes Akrura to bring Krishna and Balaram to Mathura to basically try to kill him, but this plan of demons never are effective. So Akrura went to Vrindavan and relayed the message that King Kamsa wants you to come to the wrestling match, but he's, so they all decided that was a good idea because Krishna and Balaram want to kill this demon. That's part of their mission, to kill the demons. And but the gopis didn't actually take to it very much. They didn't. They were figuring they were heartbroken. Don't take Krishna and Balaram from us. They tried to stop the cart, and but they went on, and on their way, Akrura and they take a bath in the Jamuna, right? And so Krishna and Balaram took their bath, and then Akrura went out to take a bath, but noticed that Krishna and Balaram were in the water still, but went back to the cart and saw that they were also in the cart. But when they came back, they saw the expansions of Krishna and Balaram. They say Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Lord Vishnu and Sheshananga, right? Balaram, who is the expansion of the great snake bed of Lord Vishnu. And these things are all expansions of Balaram and Krishna. And Krishna and Balaram, of course, is an expansion of Krishna as well. So all the demigods and the sages and saints were there praising, and Akrura was just awestruck by the whole thing and decided to basically relay prayers. And this is where we left off from last time. Akrura said, although the minds of those who are devotees of the demigods are fixed on a particular demigod because you are the supersoul of all living entities, including the demigods, worship of demigods indirectly goes to you. So that's a very important point, that when we use the word demigods, and this term is sort of mistaken by people to think that there are many, many gods in Hinduism. These are not actually gods. They're empowered living entities who have incredible power. I mean, if you actually think about it, if you come into a human form of life, that's a lot of power compared to like an amoeba or an ant. It's almost like very demigod status to an ant or an amoeba. But the demigods are empowered living entities to basically do certain service around the universe. In other words, be creator like Lord Brahma, or there are so many millions and millions of demigods that have different particular functions and whatnot. And sometimes humans tend to think of the demigods as gods because they have these empowered statuses. They represent certain things, like they're in charge of the weather, or they're in charge of a particular part of the universe, or maybe water on the planets, the oceans, and so many things that they do. And so people actually give sacrifices to the demigods, which was a Vedic system that you actually show respect to the demigods. But it was understood that Lord Vishnu was the highest God. He was God, of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all the demigods were the servants of Krishna, or Lord Vishnu. So that what Bhaktivedanta or Akrura is saying here is that people may pray to the demigods, but the demigods have to actually petition the Lord to fulfill that prayer. So they may or may not get that petition. So it's more effective to actually just go directly to the source, to the Supreme Personality of God. And the highest form of that, of course, is to re-engage our loving relationship, our loving service to the Supreme Lord. But even if you are someone who is desiring material benefits, it's much better to worship the Supreme Lord, because then you're also indirectly spiritually benefiting yourself. Like, demigods worship is not, as Krishna says, is not very intelligent. It's for the less intelligent. So you see this actually across the world, not just in the Vedic tradition. There are many, many cultures that worship demigods or spirits or whatnot. And so that's the worship of demigods indirectly does go to you, goes to Krishna. Sometimes after flowing down from the mountains during the rainy season, small rivers fail to reach the sea. Some reach the sea and some do not. Similarly, the worshippers of the demigods may or may not reach you. There is no guarantee. Their success depends on the strength of their worship. And so that's laid out in the fact that even if somebody is worshiping rocks, or worshiping in a very animistic sort of, like, there's a lot of animistic that people who worship rocks or demigods or trees or whatnot, it's said in the Vedas that if that person is a sincere worshiper in his religious practice, he will be elevated spiritually. And I brought that up last time. But there is no guarantee. Not everyone is going to be a sincere worshiper. They may just be doing, many people who follow a religion follow so because of social customs. They may not even have a very deep spiritual, or they may have a very evil sort of intention. And this is an argument that many atheists bring forth, that religion is actually bad because there are so many people who are faulty, I guess you could say. But the problem is not with the religion. The problem is with people. Everyone is in a different spiritual place, and religion, what it was supposed to be back in the day, was a system for society to basically elevate themselves in one way or another. Some people might be very elevated, some people might not be very elevated. But in the days of Kali Yuga, this is all kind of getting thrown out. Even the religious systems are getting thrown out. There's an increase of atheism and just a rejection in general of religion. According to Vedic principle, when a worshiper worships a particular demigod, he also conducts some ritual for Narayan, Yajneshvara. Yajna is also a name of Krishna, which means sacrifice. So Krishna is the source of all sacrifices, as this word is mentioned. Yajneshvara, the controller and enjoyer of all sacrifices. For it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita that demigods cannot fulfill the desires of their worshippers without the sanction of Narayan or Krishna. The exact words used in the Bhagavad Gita are Mayaiva Vihitan Hitan, which means that the demigods can award some benediction after being authorized by the Supreme Lord. When the demigod worshipper comes to his senses, he can reason as follows. The demigod can offer benediction only after being empowered by the Supreme Lord, so why not worship the Supreme Lord directly? Why not? Worshippers of the demigods may come to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but others who take to demigod worship as all in all cannot reach the ultimate goal. So that's kind of like said that, you're taking this path. Not all paths lead to the same way. I mean, there's that sort of adage or saying in sort of new agey saying all paths lead to the same place. All paths don't lead to the same place. Some paths lead to the other way. You can't say that all paths, like if I want to take a flight from Honolulu to San Francisco, that if I take a flight going to Japan, I'm going to San Francisco. Now, I may eventually find my way back through many long time to San Francisco by getting on that original path. So there are more direct ways to get back to Krishna, and some ways are are not the right way to go. So you can't just say that all religions are the same thing. They're not. Akrura continued to pray. Sorry, my Kindle just turned off. Akrura continued to pray, "My dear Lord, the whole world is filled with the three modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. Everyone within this material world is covered by these modes, from Lord Brahma down to the immovable plants and trees. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are beyond the influence of the three modes. Except for you, everyone is being carried away by the waves of these modes." It's a very simple and very straightforward point, and people yet people fail to understand that these modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are affecting everything in the material world. The way you think, what you eat, what music you listen to, places to live. Like I live in Hawaii, it's a mode of goodness because it's very beautiful, the air is clean, the breezes are nice, but you can be in that same place or up in the mountains and I could be experiencing mode of goodness from being in the forest, but that could actually be mode of passion and mode of ignorance at the same time for some living beings. If you look really closely inside the mountains with other different living entities or creatures or whatever, there's a fight for survival. So there's a lot of mode of passion there too. Different creatures eating each other and killing each other, and then creepers trying to crawl over each other, and even when you're in a body of a plant, that's a mode of ignorance because you don't move really. It's a mode of ignorance. So these kind of things are intertwined and inter-affected, and so even at nighttime, go to bed, and mode of ignorance is natural that we get sleepy when we want to go to bed. If we were in a mode of passion or something, we would. Some people are. They just like constantly taking drugs or whatever, and they're in mode of passion, and they're constantly trying to stay awake. But eventually, those things catch up to them. Then you're like, I have to sleep, or then you come out of a situation where you're not doing drugs or you're not doing, stimulants, or you walk into a forest and it's just like, oh, there's mode of goodness again. So these kind of things just always cross over each other. That's a very deep subject, and I recommend reading in the Bhagavad Gita. There's an actual chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. I believe it's, I kind of say right off the top of my head, maybe chapter 15, but you can open the Bhagavad Gita as it is and find it in the table of contents. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are beyond the influence of the three modes. Except for you, everyone is being carried away by the waves of these modes. My dear Lord, fire is your mouth, the earth is your feet, the sun is your eye, the sky is your navel, and the directions are your ears. Space is your head, the demigods are your arms, the oceans and seas are your abdomen, and the winds and hair are your strength and vitality. All the plants and herbs are the hairs on your body. The clouds are your hair, the mountain are your bones and nails. The days and nights are the twinkling of your eyelids. Prajapati, the progenitor, is your genitals, and the rains are your semina. So this is a very nice analogy, especially for people who have a hard time, maybe they have an impersonal conception of God, and they have a hard time understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But even if they just want to have a simple understanding, the cosmic manifestation is the body of Krishna also. It's an expansion of Krishna. It's it's what they call the cosmic manifestation. And so you can meditate upon these kind of things that they talk about to help you remember Krishna. So they're out in the forest and you think, like they talk about the mountains. This also goes on with other parts in other references I've seen, that the mountains are like Krishna's bones, or it's the here it says here, oh yeah, the mountains are your bones and nails, the days and nights are the twinkling of your eyelids. So all these things it's very wonderful. You can meditate upon Krishna in his cosmic manifestation. My dear Lord, all living entities, including different grades of demigods, different grades of overlords, kings, and other living entities, are supposed to be resting in you. As part and parcel of the big unit, one cannot know you by experimental knowledge. That's a very important point. We've said that before, but this is a point that continually, I come back to, atheists and materialists to try to explain that the experimental knowledge it's just slipping my head, the name of it, but material science is based on experimental knowledge. It's based on material concepts, and to try to explain and try to capture the idea of a spiritual concept like the Supreme Personality of Godhead is impossible. But we can use the material language to lead us that way. One can simply understand your transcendental existence as a great ocean in which different grades of living entity are included. So you see, even Jesus Christ, and there are a lot of references, even my spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Swami, has used analogies to try to explain spiritual concepts like the ocean of nescience or the fires of material life. Jesus Christ also did that, where he told stories and parables so that people could understand spiritual concepts very simply. One can simply understand your transcendental existence as a great ocean in which different grades of living entities are included, or as the fruit kandamba, out of which small mosquitoes come. My dear Lord, whatever eternal forms and incarnations you accept and which appear in this world are meant for relieving the living entities from their ignorance, illusion, and lamentation. So that's a very important point. We don't refute that the ideas of trying to understand spiritual concepts are difficult or limited with the material language, but that's what we have to use, what we have. But the problem is with most atheists is that they just basically throw the baby out with the bathwater, instead of just saying, well, we can't use language, we can't understand these concepts, so therefore we just nullify its existence. It just doesn't exist. But actually, the purpose of understanding spiritual truth is to help people's ignorance, illusion, and lamentation. And the practice of Krishna Katha, the practice of hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, is non-different. It's a spiritual descending. It's spiritual descending. So therefore, it is the process by which we can come to self-realization in this day and age. We can come and we can understand. When we read this, we understand it. When we hear it from our Guru Dev, our spiritual master, we understand it. So it's not very much like, it's not like we do in this world, especially with this day and age of information, where we accumulate information, different things, we kind of put it in a blender and decide what works for us. The truth is the truth. It's not something that we adapt to ourselves. It's something that we realize. So that the practice of meditation, the practice of self-realization, is also done in a way to help clear our heart and clear our mind and clear, as Krishna would say in the Bhagavad Gita, I will give you divine eyes. They give you the spiritual vision to be able to see it, to be able to understand it. And that's a hard thing to do when you've been brought up in a system where you come to know the truth by accumulating information. But that's not necessarily, when you accumulate material information and not on spiritual matters, but just on material information, is bound to have all kinds of faults or not even be correct. Sort of like going, if you those little train tracks, when you change the track, you're going down towards the truth, and then you change the track. It doesn't matter, even if you're on that track and somebody gives you false information, and they just keep giving that, and the people like base their papers and their understanding on this false information. It's just going to be false all the way down the line. It's not going to be based on any kind of reality. The Vedas are self-evident because they are directly from Krishna, and they're handed down like a mango is handed down, and perfectly intact by self-realized spiritual teachers to sincere disciples who then eventually become spiritual masters. So anyway, we'll get back to this here. All people therefore can appreciate the incarnations and pastimes of your lordship and eternally glorify your activities. No one can estimate how many forms and incarnations you have, nor can anyone estimate. Sorry, I turned off again. I guess just if I talk too much, it'll just shut down. Estimate the numbers of universes that are existing within you. So this idea, this scientific understanding that there may be parallel universes, this is something that's relatively new in the West of understanding, and it's still a speculation because they don't really have any way to observe parallel universes. If you can't observe something, if it's outside of the universe and you can't observe it, all you can base it on. But it is a reality. It is a reality. It's been mentioned in the Vedas from time immemorial that there are infinite number of universes, some much greater in dimensions than the universe that we're existing in. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the incarnation of fish, who appeared in devastation, although your lordship is the cause of all cause. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Hayagriva incarnation, who killed the two demons Madhu and Kaitava. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as a gigantic tortoise and held up the great mountain Mandara, and who appeared as a boar to rescue the earth planet, which had fallen into the water of Garbhodaka. So all these stories are actually also in the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the different cantos, these different incarnations of Krishna and stories. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto your lordship, who appeared as Nrsingadev, who delivered all kinds of devotees from the fearful condition of atheistic atrocities. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as Vamanadev and covered the three worlds simply by expanding your lotus feet. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as the Lord of Brigus, in order to kill all the infidel administrators of the world. And let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as Lord Rama to kill demons like Ravana. You are worshipped by all devotees as the chief of the Raghu dynasty, Lord Ramachandra. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as the Lord Vasudev, Lord Shankarshan, Lord Pradyumna, and Lord Aniruddha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as Lord Buddha, in order to bewilder the atheistic and demoniac. So actually there's a reference to Lord Buddha, which is actually Krishna incarnate. Came as Lord Buddha to basically throw out the Vedic system at the time where it had become completely corrupt. And Lord Buddha borrowed, if you see in Buddhism, there's a lot of references. First of all, it's in Sanskrit. Secondly, a lot of concepts came from the Vedic system, but he changed things a little bit to basically not nullify an idea of a deity or a supreme lord. It's actually nihilistic religion that he came to basically fool the atheists, to throw out the Vedic system as it was corrupt, and to fool the atheists to worship him as a god, because he is God, really. He's Krishna. And let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appear as Kalki in order to chastise the so-called royal order degraded to the abominable condition of the Malekas, who are below the jurisdiction of Vedic regulative principles. And Lord Kalki is supposed to appear at the end of this Kali Yuga age, when 435,000 years from now. So this Kali Yuga has been in movement of 5,000 years, and just you can observe how bad it has gotten even within the last 100 years. We can imagine what it would be like 435,000 years. But it does explain this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It explains it, how Kalki, how Krishna comes as asserted to reset the yugas into a Satya Yuga by eliminating all the demoniac forces. And it'll become very demoniac, actually. It's said that the humans will have shrunk to a very short size. Different creatures like cockroaches and rats and whatnot will expand and be very large, like dinosaurs. And that the devotees will be hidden because they'll be highly persecuted. The humans will eat their own children. So many crazy stuff that's going on. The earth will be like hellish, very hellish. My dear Lord, everyone who is within this material world is conditioned by your illusory energy. Under the impression of false identification and false possession, everyone is transmigrating from one body to another in the path of fruitive activities and their reactions. This is what's going on in the material world, one after another. People consistently in pursuit of fruitive activities, or trying to find some kind of material happiness in this world, just reincarnating from one body to another. My dear Lord, I am also no exception to these conditioned souls. I am falsely thinking myself happy and possessing my home, wife, children, state, property, and effects. In this way, I am acting as if in a dreamland, because none of these things are permanent. It is a great dreamland. The fact that so many people, although so many people have, that's something that the great king and emperor Yudhishthira, the brother of Arjuna, was asked there's a story in the Mahabharata. He's asked, what is the greatest thing? What's the most wonderful thing? And one of the things he said was that the fact that even though humans observe people dying all the time around them, they themselves think that they will live forever, or at least act on that platform. It is. It's an amazing kind of dreamland. I am a fool to be always absorbed in such thoughts, accepting them as permanent in truth. My dear Lord, due to my false identification, I have accepted everything which is non-permanent, such as this material body, which is not spiritual, and is the source of all kinds of miserable conditions. And believe me, it goes downhill as you get older, definitely. By being bewildered by such concepts of life, I am always absorbed in thoughts of duality, and I have forgotten you, who are the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. I am bereft of your transcendental association, and I am just like a foolish creature who goes in search of water in the desert, leaving the water spot which is covered by the water-nourished vegetable. So here's another analogy that's really great, that even in the situation where you come into contact with a pure devotee, or someone who's teaching you about bhakti, or about love of God, or about spiritual life, they may stay there by the water spot, but then they go off, they see a mirage. Oh, there's something that looks really great. Let me go off there. And this is the amazing kind of situation in this matter, that people do this all the time. The conditioned souls want to quench their thirst, but they do not know where to find water. They give up the spot where there is actually a reservoir of water and run into the desert where there is no water. My dear Lord, I am completely incapable of controlling my mind, which is now driven by the unbridled senses and is attracted by fruitive activities and their results. My dear Lord, your lotus feet cannot be appreciated by any person in the conditioned stage of material existence, but somehow or other I have come near your lotus feet, and I consider this to be your causeless mercy upon me. You can act in any way because you are the supreme controller. I can thus understand when a person becomes eligible to be delivered from the path of repeated birth and death. It is only by your causeless mercy that the further progress is to become attached to your causeless devotional service. Akrura fell down before the Lord and said, "My dear Lord, your transcendental eternal form is full of knowledge. Simply by concentrating one's mind upon your form, one can understand in full knowledge everything that be, because you are the original source of all knowledge." So it's a very easy concept, really. God is the source of all things, so therefore all things come from God. So, if you want to reinstate your loving relationship with God, meditating upon God. Yoga is a concept that is actually understand to be not just something that you meditate upon, but absorb your life in. When you're talking about yoga meditation, you absorb yourself in Krishna. Therefore, because that is the source of all knowledge. You are the supreme powerful, possessing all kinds of energies. You are the supreme Brahman and the supreme person, supreme controller and master of all of the material energies. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are Vasudev, the resting place of all creation. You are the all-pervading supreme personality of Godhead, and you are also the super soul residing within everyone's heart and giving direction to act. So Krishna is Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead. He is Paramatma, the Lord expansion within one's heart. And he is Brahman, the impersonal energy or effulgence that comes from his body. All are the supreme, are Krishna. And you are the supreme soul residing within everyone's heart, giving direction to act. Now, my Lord, I am completely surrendered unto you. Please give me your protection. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 39th chapter of Krishna, Prayers by Akrura. So next chapter we will read is Krishna enters Mathura, and that gets really exciting in the story. So I'm going to stop it there, and we're going to chant some more. Thank you very much for tuning in. Chords. Glasses off. right, Bull, thank you so much for joining for Krishna Book Reading. Please feel free to like and subscribe on my channel. And feel free to share this along for the devotees in the devotee community. Feel free to share amongst your devotee friends there, or non-devotees, or anyone along that way. Thank you very much. Haribol.